Hello and welcome back to El Podo, the Primera RFEF show, where we bring you all the action from the third tier of Spanish football. I'm Nick Bell in unfamiliar surroundings this week. I'm working away, so no studio for my comforts, but I'm delighted to say I'm being joined by my co-host, Liam, once again. How are you doing?
Yeah, not bad. Delighted to have our end product from in terms of what games we're going to have to watch, and delighted to be able to announce that you are coming with me to watch some Primera Federación football in a couple of weeks, aren't you?
Yes, we are. I'm very excited about this, and I'm still trying to work out how I've managed to pull this off, if I'm being perfectly honest, Liam. It went too smoothly not to have any kind of compensation further down the line. So I imagine a few trips to IKEA, maybe some nice walks are in line for myself and Mrs. Bell going down the in the near future. Let's put it that way. But on the back of Jornada Ocho being released, the fixtures were published just after we finished recording, which is always very, very useful. We've managed to confirm that we are going to be in Madrid for match day 8. And we are going somewhere quite special, aren't we, Liam? Somewhere that I think we're falling in love with quite quickly.
Yeah, we are. We haven't got entirely lucky, and that's always the way, isn't it? When you organise these trips to Spain, you never get exactly what you want. And unfortunately, we're really hoping to get to Alcorcón, where that game is on the Friday night, just as we're arriving, more or less, isn't it? I think. And although I'm not a massive fan of filiales, as we've kind of established now, and I know you're not either, I would have quite liked to have seen Torremolinos taking on Atletico Sanluqueno, but that game clashes with a prior commitment to go and watch Leganés against Malaga. But the one that we really wanted for this weekend has fallen perfectly for us, hasn't it, Nick?
It really has. And we will be off to Guadalajara, who I know we've been championing a bit on this podcast. I know I said that I have them predicted to finish 5th. They've had a great start to the season, and we've been getting a lot of love from their fans online and things like that. But more importantly, Liam, we're going to go buy some beautiful royal purple shirts as well. So I'm very excited for this Saturday kickoff, and then obviously get to watch my beloved Malaga on the Sunday as well. So it is a good weekend to be Nick Bell, let's put it that way.
Yes, I'm sure that when you presented it like that to Mrs. Bell, she just couldn't refuse your position. And clearly, the prospect of Guadalajara on a Saturday and Leganés on a Sunday, and she was immediately understanding to your situation, I'm sure.
Yeah. And it's definitely got nothing with the fact that I booked to go to Disneyland the week after and take them there. I didn't do that in hindsight to sort of guarantee that I could get to Madrid the weekend before as a bit of a favour to myself. That'd be daft, wouldn't it, to think I would do such a thing?
Of course not. Entirely duplicitous of you, Mr. Bell, and I'm sure you would never dream of such a move. Shall we go with the games? It's Grupo Uno, first of all, isn't it, I think? And I think you looked at Grupo Uno. We've just mentioned them. We're not obsessed with Guadalajara or anything, but we do like them. And I think it was absolutely right that you chose Racing Club de Ferrol against Deportivo Guadalajara as one of your 3 games to watch in Grupo Uno. Unfortunately, we didn't get the spectacle that we quite were hoping for, did we?
No, it wasn't a classic, and to say it was action filmed would be a blatant lie, if I'm being perfectly honest, Liam. But one thing for sure, going away to Racing Club de Ferrol on a Friday night, Guadalajara would have taken a point before the game. I must first and foremost do a bit of a tip of the hat to the fans. I don't know if you saw them, Liam. I think there was about 6 of them, Guadalajara fans at Malata. And in fine voice as well, by all accounts. But it just always looks strange when you've got 6 people stood in like a sectioned away zone. It's always quite interesting. But, to make that long trip from the interior of Spain on a Friday night is quite the effort, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a long way. I hope they made a weekend of it because, it's an awfully long way. It's definitely all a Friday off work, isn't it? And probably a very early start, I imagine, on Friday morning as well. So, great to see them there. And, it wasn't a great game, but you're absolutely right. I'm sure that to go there and get a point, let's not forget that they've also gone to Ponferradina the week before and won there to take 4 points out of 6 from a recently relegated side and a side that's been in the playoffs the last 2 seasons. That's a tremendous return on the road for them, isn't it? So, although I'm sure those 6 fans would have liked a little bit more goal math action, but they to be fair, they did have a couple of moments when you thought they might break the deadlock, didn't you? I thought the Salifa challenge on Salifa, I should say, looked like it might have been a penalty, but not given by the referee. He stuck by his original decision, which was no penalty. And then Racing Club de Fel did slightly take over, didn't they?
Yeah, it became one-way traffic, I think is the term they would like to use, and just chance after chance for Ferrol, but just left begging, and there was just not enough up top to finish them, and I'm sure we'll come on to that conversation shortly. Guadalajara did have a really great chance to snatch a goal against the run of play. Pablo Munoz, who came on after half-time, broke through. He was one-on-one with the goalkeeper, but he sort of like scuffed his shot, which I think, we've all been there, Liam, at that point. But what I really did enjoy was sort of like the Chef Kikuchi-esque swan dive to the floor afterwards. I don't know if he was looking for the penalty or not. I certainly wouldn't have given it to him if I'd have seen this and I was the referee, but it was quite spectacular. But again, this is the hallmark of Guadalajara when they come to, potentially taking their chances against bigger sides. They will play against you. They're not scared to, absorb pressure and take a couple of hits before pouncing, and I think that's quite admirable from them as well.
Yeah, I think he'd be disappointed. I'm fairly sure he scored the previous week, unless that was another Munoz, and finished very coolly. I think it was Salifa Dolmy, wasn't it? And he tucked it away from the edge of the box last weekend before last against El Toralín. But yeah, this was poor. He should have done better, even on his left foot, which I suspect is not his stronger one. I'm not sure about the dive as well. There didn't seem to be anyone very near him, so he was never going to get a penalty for it. But perhaps he was just trying to make out he'd slipped or something. But yeah, overall, a decent point. They take that all day, Deportivo Guadalajara. And as you said, I think Club de Ferrol they feel a little bit kind of just lacking a cutting edge. They had plenty off the game, as you say. They got into the right areas. It was a lot of pressure that they exerted on the Guadalajara defense, but without a huge amount to show for it. And when you compare them, for instance, with Tenerife, who are probably we said at the start of the season, didn't we? We thought that I think Club de Ferrol and Tenerife were the two that would compete for the title, and we all know about who Tenerife have got up front. And Racing Club de Ferrol don't seem to have anyone who's anywhere near that clinical in front of goal, and that may end up being the difference between the two sides over the course of the season.
No, 100%, I agree, and everything up to that final third for Racing Ferrol, they look for all intents and purposes like a Spanish Segunda team that have fallen into El Pozo. They've got the quality, they've got the ability, they've got the patterns of play, they've got a good manager under Pablo Lopez, who's obviously proven himself at this level with Orense. It's just that striker, and the name of the chap who was at Real Zaragoza eludes me right now. But when you look at that potential option where he stayed with Racing Ferrol rather than getting a return to Segunda, and then you look at the signings that Tenerife have made and going out to Castellón and buying a Di Miguel, that will prove to be the difference between these two sides come the end of the season, because I've got no doubt that Ferrol will be up there. But, in terms of how we can see Tenerife taking on games, it's chalk and cheese compared to Racing Ferrol at the moment.
I think Álvaro Jiménez is still there, isn't he? But yeah, he's not even at his best, even playing a level below where he spent most of the last 5 or 6 years, which is, of course, in Segunda. He is not in the same league in terms of finishing, in terms of ability to put those chances away as Jesus de Miguel. And he's never been that prolific. I think he's had 1 or 2 good seasons in his career. He's not the guy who's going to score 20 goals from, I don't think. And I think that De Miguel will score 20 goals for Tenerife. So that will be a massive difference. But as you say, I think anybody in this group will realise already that Tenerife are going to take a heck of a lot of stopping in. And I think Club de Ferrol will be aware that they also need to make sure that if they aren't going to get anywhere near the runaway leaders at this point, they at least make the playoffs, because, as you say, there's a lot about this team that says playoffs. Apart from that, that final bit that's the most important part of the entire game, unfortunately for them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's something they could potentially address. They've got the finances to be able to go and have a little look around, and there are still some free agents that have previously played at higher levels that are available. But that would be, my first port of call at the minute, especially looking at the last 2 games in isolation for Racing Club de Ferrol, is we need goals, and we need them quickly, really, if we're going to be able to compete for that automatic spot. Because let's not forget, there is only one automatic spot back up to the Spanish Segunda, and if you don't make it, you are into the gamble that is the playoffs, and it's a very intrinsic playoff system, very elaborate, and can cut a lot of people at the knees, unfortunately. So, it'd be interesting to see whether Racing Ferrol address those concerns. Moving on to my next game, Liam, of the weekend, I picked out a Galician derby. As you know, we love a Galician derby here on El Pozo. It was attended by a friend of the podcast, James, who sent us some cracking pictures and videos of himself on telly as well. He's made a cracking trip there from Pontevedra down to Orense. It was the home side that actually had the ball in the net first, but it was ruled out after the ref. And I don't know if you saw all this on the highlights, Liam, but it was like a Royal Rumble at times. It was, pushes in the back. It was throws to the floor. There was an offside decision. It was everything that you didn't want to need before it was ruled out. But what I really had to giggle about was the striker, Omar, acting as if nothing had happened, as if it was a perfectly fine goal, despite the fact that he'd slammed a Pontevedra centre-back to the floor.
Yeah, I thought that was really amusing. I know players are often fairly unwilling to admit that they're in the wrong, but this was comical, wasn't it? It was so obviously a foul, and as you say, referee could have given 3 or 4 fouls before that. So correctly ruled out, and then having had a goal ruled out for themselves, they then decided that they would essentially just give a penalty away at the other end, didn't they?
Yeah, it was. I don't know if this is maybe a tactic from Danny Lather to be to pick maybe a bit of a nostalgic metaphor. If you've ever watched the Mighty Ducks and you would see the Bash brothers, going out onto the into the rink and just smashing everybody up, it felt a bit like that. And Captain Comana this time he's gone in for a header, but he's ended up headbutting Bryce Albelenda. Right in the head as well. Like, I was surprised that the number 8 for Pontevedra could continue, but it's a clear penalty. He's gone in there and he's just smashed him. And unfortunately for Pontevedra, they got the penalty and then calmly converted by Alan Ribeiro. So, first blood to Pontevedra in this game. And not against someone of play either, Liam. Let's this be said. I am really worried about Orense in this league at the moment, but they almost did hit back. I don't know if you saw this free kick from the edge of the box, Liam.
I think you're being a little bit tongue-in-cheek there, aren't you? They didn't really almost hit back. They almost hit the block of flats about 500 yards down the road. To be honest, it wasn't a particularly impressive free kick. And then they go another penalty, and again, this is a clear penalty, and it's a red card as well, of course, because he doesn't make any attempt to play the ball, and they changed the penalty taker, which I know my good friend Alex Fitzpatrick likes to see. He doesn't like to see the same guy take the 2 penalties in a game, and Pontevedra followed the Fitzpatrick edicts on that front, and I made it 2-0. And yeah, I mean, I just thought that some of what we saw in the first, as you say, half an hour in terms of the tackling and everything, it does remind us again of how little quality there is in this Orense squad, and they certainly overperformed last season, and I just don't see an awful lot there for Danny Lather to work with. They got one back later on, didn't they? But just not really much to get excited about from an Orense fan point of view.
Do you think we've already maybe given the kiss of death to the Unionistas manager Oriol Riera? Obviously, he then got replaced after we recorded our podcast. Do you think, if we dare ask, will Danny Lather be around for much longer? I can't see him, given how much we know how trigger happy Orense were with managers last season.
Yeah, it's ironic, isn't it? I think Ruben Dominguez, who was the Pontevedra coach this last weekend, was one of the victims of that, wasn't he? They didn't get rid of that many. I don't think they obviously then got Pablo Lopez in, and he spent the rest of the season there, but they didn't take long to get rid of Ruben Dominguez. And yeah, I think this is a really poor start for him. I can't see if they're getting much longer. He does need to turn things around quickly. And I think they're Club de Ferrol this weekend, aren't they, or something? So it's not exactly ideal when you're trying to post your first win of the season. So yeah, I'm not sure he'll necessarily go this week, but I'm not sure, unless he can turn things around fairly quickly, that he's going to last much longer. And I do feel for him, because he's obviously taken this job on the back of a disappointing spell at Unionistas when it didn't really work out for him, and now he's slightly out of the frying pan into the fire, isn't he? This doesn't look like a great job for him. He's had to take it, of course, as all out of job coaches will feel the need to do so sometimes, even when they're not totally convinced by the project. And I'm not sure he's going to be around much longer to oversee it.
No, I 100% agree with Liam. I think he will fall foul of that, and I think that could be, you can see that in the players as well. And there's a lot you can say about body language from footballers when they are, up against the cosh a little bit. And there was one instance where a Pontevedra player broke the offside trap, sort of like on the halfway line. And, fortunately for them, he pulled out a massive save from the goalkeeper. But you could see the bickering between the centre-backs, and that kind of, on-field arguments is always, sort of a signature of something's just not quite right with the team chemistry and the team confidence at the moment. And a lot of that comes down to the manager. So in the same way that we spoke about Aurel Riera at Unionistas a couple of weeks ago, I get the sense that, Danny Lasser's time is written on the wall, really, and it'll be if and not when, or when, not if even, he is replaced at Orense. So, watch that space, I would say. It'll probably be announced just after this podcast has been recorded, to be fair, Liam, knowing our luck. So we might record an alternate version after this where he already has been potted. On to my third choice, Liam, Zamora against Merida. And this is the Zamora we've been expecting, finally. They've showed up for us, Liam, and you could tell very early on that they were up for this one, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, they've not had a terrible start to the season, but I think the expectations are so high there, given the players that they brought in over the summer, that they would still see it as a little bit below par. They did indeed turn up for this one. You will be aware that I will be quite unhappy with this first goal, Nick, given that I don't like to be too much of an old fuddy-duddy about this, but I do think that there's an awful lot of playing out from the back that is ill-advised. This particular piece of playing out from the back by Merida was proven to be ill-advised once. I think it was Kike Marque, wasn't he? Blocked a clearance from Domingo. Then Eslava had the easiest chance to score against his former club. La Ley del X strikes again, and it didn't get any better for Merida after that, did it?
No, it was, again, I can't quite put my finger on what's going on with Merida at the moment, but it was more lacklustre defending from the away side. A ball whipped in from a free kick on the right-hand side. It's gone in really deep towards the back post. Yeah, there was just nobody there. Nobody marking Kike Marquez, who basically just had to finish with a tap-in the grand scheme of things, which capped a brilliant performance by the left midfielder for Zamora in this game. He did make our team of the week as well, I think deservedly. He had a great game, but he won't find many easier chances than that, will him, where he's just been left unmarked. Easy work.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they have a chance to get back into it. I think it's Martin Solar who broke through, and it's just the way it's going for them at the moment, isn't it? It was a decent save from Fermi Sobran, but I just think he should have gone closer. He took it too early for me. I think it was almost like he was scared to get in and really see the whites of the keeper's eyes and then slot it, And yeah, it's a decent save, but he should score from there, shouldn't he? Talking to keepers, shouldn't really say too much about the third goal. Should we? Whilst that was a decent save from Zamora, I'm not quite sure what the Merida keeper was doing on the third Zamora goal.
No, I think the term is flapping, Liam, is the way they go for it. And, it's coming from a corner. So, a keeper has got every single right, in his rule book to come for a corner and gather it. But he might as well come with his arms tied behind his back, because he got absolutely nowhere near this. He's completely missed it. He's left the goal wide open. And all Lozano has to do is nod it in. He's, a tall footballer at that, and he's been marked by, I think it was Doncel, if I remember rightly, who is quite a short footballer at this rate. So again, the elements would say that he's up against it from day dot, and he could certainly do without his goalkeeper going AWOL in the middle of the box. But take nothing away from the header. It's a great header at the back post, and capped off a imperious performance for Zamora. And this is more like it. This is what we were expecting for Zamora at the start of the season, wasn't it, Liam? Winning games by 3 goals, and scoring for fun and looking confident is the way I would describe it.
Yeah, I think so. They were given a fairly easy ride in this game. There's no doubt about it. As we will discuss in due course, they've got a slightly tougher fixture this weekend. But yeah, you can only beat what's put in front of you, and they beat the side put in front of them comprehensively over the 90 minutes. Gave away very little at the back, another clean sheet. So yeah, it's certainly the sort of performance you'd expect for them to be putting in against a side that is struggling. You expect them to see them off quite comfortably, and that's exactly what they did. Grupo Dos, over to me. We started, yes, I believe, with some great news in Marbella. Talking of great news, not great news, amusing news. I noticed it's the first time the other day, Nick. Have you seen one of the companies that's advertised just as the players come out of the tunnel at Marbella? It is a Porsche garage. That's so Marbella, isn't it? I bet it's the only Porsche garage ad in the whole of Primera Federación.
Yeah, that is proper Marbella. That is really Marbella as well. And obviously great news that Gabri started at last. I know you've been waiting for that one, Liam. Dare I say, not even just you. We've both been waiting to see that happen. But it wasn't the start that he would have wanted, was it?
It wasn't. About a quarter of an hour in, he gets caught. He doesn't get caught. He gets horribly exposed, Nick. Poor Gabri. It's a shameful dereliction of duty from his fellow defenders. He ends up in a situation where he's got an overlapping winger and he's got a guy running at him, and he basically doesn't know which one to take, and he keeps his eye on the one outside him, and the guy who's on the ball cuts inside and bends it in the corner. So, yeah, that's 1-0 Betis Deportivo. Let's not forget that at this stage, visitors haven't won a game yet this season. And I'll be honest, after that, you mentioned the Racing Club de Ferrol Guadalajara game not being a classic. There wasn't a lot happening in this one for a very long time. I did find it quite amusing. I mean, I don't want to dwell too much on FES because, talking about referees and technology all the time is a bit dull, I think. But, there's some things that just seem ridiculous to me about this FES sometimes. And this is one of these ones where I think Marbella must have challenged the referee's decision not to award a penalty for handball. The rules are quite clear, Nick. If it hits his body first and onto his arm, it's not a penalty. Everyone can see that very clearly. And yet we waste 2 or 3 minutes while the referee confirms what we all knew was going to happen, which was that he wasn't going to give a penalty because it hit the body before it hit the hand. That sort of thing to me, I know they've got 2 challenges, and there's a certain sense out there of, let's give it a go, see what happens. But I think that's an absolute nonsense, to be honest.
No, I 100% agree. I think there's going to be some finessing around FBS. Maybe it'll probably come through next season at this rate. But I think there are some things where people are just calling for things for the sake of it, and this definitely feels like one of those instances. But Marbella did go looking for the equaliser. Obviously, Roger Rios missed a bit of a sitter. And just as it looked like Betis Deportivo and Javi Medina are about to get their first win for the season, who should pop up? And I'll try not to butcher this name, Liam.
I'm not sure I know either. I mean, this isn't the properly Spanish name here, so you can butcher all you like, because I would probably follow you along. My Mandarin's not great, Nick, so don't worry about it.
No, it's not. I'm going to go with Hugh Sung-do. Is the name I'm going to go for. I don't know this to be fact, but I assume Chinese striker for Marbella. A 90th minute bullet header. I think it was quite a great header from a corner as well, wasn't it?
It was good, although I sort of felt like after he'd headed it, he sort of like his head went in a funny direction as if he hadn't sort of meant it exactly. It really was a slightly strange one. He's a relatively tall lad, but I'm not sure he's necessarily renowned for his aerial ability. And then we had what we thought was the winner in this game. Now, this is again something I'll perhaps discuss later on in one of my other games, but I don't know. I don't know whether this was actually. There's a big difference here for me, Nick, between the referee's assistant raising his flag and then the decision being checked, and the goal being given and then the decision being checked and then maybe an offside being given. I think, judging by the reaction of the Betis Deportivo players, that the referee's assistant did give an offside here. retrospectively, as they always do after the ball had gone in the net, because I think you saw them turn to the sideline and say, look, there's no way that's not right. It then does become a millimetrical decision. And this is where I start to struggle with FES, because we were told that FES would not be used for millimetrical offside decisions simply because they don't draw the lines. So it's not right for when the decision is very close, then it's not right for FES to come into play, because it can't be accurate enough. Perhaps not to overturn a decision anyway, but perhaps if the referee's assistant has given it and it does look very fractionally offside, maybe then they do have to give it. Whatever the rights and wrongs of the case, Betis Deportivo thought they got their first win in injury time. They hadn't. And it ended up 1-1. And I suppose that's not a bad result from Marbella from being 1-0 down in the 90th minute. But again, it's one of those games that I feel like they would have expected to win. And again, if they're looking to compete at the top end of the Grupo, they need to be putting away sides like Betis Deportivo for me.
Yeah, 100% agree with you on that on both points as well. I think on the FES thing, we've seen a couple of instances with Teruel as well, where the position of the camera just doesn't allow itself to be able to call offside decisions. And knowing a little bit about the Banús Football Centre, it's not a massive stadium. It is a training ground with a few stands in it. I suggest that the camera is probably not up to scratch either to be able to help with those decisions either. So I can see why Betis Deportivo would be feeling a bit unjust with that decision. But this is the way things are going at the moment. And I feel with Marbella as well, with a couple of the results recently, they came out the traps early on in the season. Last few games, they've kind of flattered to deceive a little bit. Too many draws maybe with the way to go. With the squad that they've got, they should be competing towards the top end of Grupo Dos. And we're seeing with incidentally the next team that we'll be talking about, there isn't a clear leader in this league at the minute, and a lot of those big sides, or those traditional big sides that we talk about, are faltering very early on, Liam. But to the benefit of teams like Atletico Sanluqueno, who are our next game.
It's incredible, this, isn't it? I mean, I did, as I say, have this fixture against Cartagena as one of the ones to watch. I knew that Cartagena would have a tough game there, and because I think we've said before, even last season when Atletico Sanluqueno was struggling, they are a difficult proposition on their own patch. They actually blew Cartagena away in this game. I mean, they had things that went for them, but they were 2 up before they had the first decision that I agree with as well. Again, it was an FES appeal. It was a really poor challenge from Pablo Araya, caught an Atletico Sanluqueno player very high on his thigh, and the referee didn't initially send him off, but then after the FES appeal, he did send him off. And then Cartagena, I think, had a penalty awarded against them and appealed it, and the referee stuck to his guns. So I think overall, one of those days when Cartagena will be saying FES get in the bin. But overall, they could have no complaints about the results. 3-0 did not flatter Atletico Sanluqueno in any way at all. Unsurprisingly, the second half was pretty much a non-event, because it was 3-0 versus 10 men, and Cartagena didn't really have enough about them to overcome that, and Atletico Sanluqueno had essentially won the game, so didn't feel the need to push on and risk a freak comeback from the visitors. So but that puts Atletico Sanluqueno top of Group 2, doesn't it? Joint top, I think it is, and unbeaten after 5. And exactly as you say, Nick, we're looking at the likes of Cartagena to boss this particular Grupo, and right now it's anybody's, isn't it? And that's why Marbella, with the squad that they have, will be a little bit disappointed. I think that they're not perhaps a little bit more dominating this particular Grupo.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll take nothing away from Atletico Sanluqueno, because again, as we mentioned before, you can only play who is in front of you. And for a team that, for large parts of last season played so poorly, obviously changing their manager with, I think it was with 4 games to go last season. Obviously, he's carried on that momentum from that last day survival last season, and also sort of like a depleted squad as well, because they lost a lot of talent who either returned on loan or moved on to pastures new to maybe avoid the repeat situation. So it is really interesting to see how well they've started this league as well, and the support from the Sanluqueno fans as well. There are people piling into El Palmar which has not usually been known for being a hotbed of football, so to speak. But it's good to see that there's more interest in football in Sanlucar del Barrameda, I think is the name of the town, if I remember rightly, Liam. And if they can go on and keep this up, then who knows? They might be in with a shout of being in the playoffs, or even, dare I say, the automatic promotion picture, which would be an interesting addition to the Spanish Segunda, Liam, for your other podcast.
Yeah, certainly would. And again, one of the reasons why they are in the mix very early on, we have got a long way to go, of course, is because another side that we really expected to be right up there, Murcia, is not doing it at the moment either, is it? And this was my third game from Grupo Dos that of the ones to watch. And Algeciras scored very early in this one against Real Murcia. The first couple of minutes, I think they scored. Manin scored. Good ball in from the left, and he got on the end of it. And yeah, I mean, it just wasn't good enough from Real Murcia. This is a really talented squad of players. They've got in Flacos, along with De Miguel, one of the two best strikers, I think, in Primera Federación. And the second half, I mean, the conditions weren't great. We know Algeciras is like Atletico Sanluqueno. It's a difficult place to go and get a good result. But they had 88 minutes plus added time to try and get back into this one, and failed miserably, especially in the second 45, where they really were very disappointing.
Yeah, I really agree. And I think the only way I can describe Real Murcia at the moment, Liam, is they are flat. And I mean that in terms of, they've got the talent, they've got the players, but they don't seem to be playing in a system which allows it to be expansive, to be exciting and things like that. If I was to draw any comparisons, if I'm being perfectly honest, Liam, I see a lot of, say, for example, what Sergio Pérez said with Malaga a few seasons ago in this league, and it's kind of more like an attritional way of succeeding. But the problem is you've got to at least draw games to make that happen. And for Real Murcia at the moment, they aren't getting the points that they need to be competitive towards the top of this league. And, again, we've mentioned it a few times, we're only 5 games in, there's a long way to go. But the thing is, after these first 5, 6, 7 games, you can quite easily, find yourself too far off to catch up to teams that are at the top of the league, to make a bit of a run together. So it's going to be interesting to see whether they actually stick by the manager for me, Liam, because there's a lot of expectation in Murcia at the moment to get this team back to where they think they belong, at least in the Spanish Segunda. And time is of the essence, really, because teams are starting to pull away from them.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Echeverría, I've always really liked him as a coach. I've obviously seen a lot of him in Segunda. He was very good at Mirandés and at Eibar as well. He played some lovely football there. He had some very good players under his tutelage, but he's also got some pretty good players for Primera Federación level here. And I'm not quite sure why it's not working at the moment, but it certainly isn't. I do think that they're very unfortunate. I think the first goal, which is the stand for offside, is initially flagged by the referee's assistant, but the second one clearly isn't. And I'll get back to this point again. I don't like to labour it too much, but if the initial decision is goal, and then we know that they check every single goal, which at times seems ridiculous, I just don't see how they should then be looking for a millimetrical offside. If the initial decision is it's okay, then we shouldn't starting to be splitting hairs. And this Flacos goal, if it's offside, it's incredibly close. And I think at that point, you have to say it's not clear-cut enough to disallow this goal. It needs to stand, and maybe the game would have turned out very differently. It doesn't excuse a very poor second-half performance from Real Murcia, but I think they were unlucky with this one.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, especially on the point that I think sometimes in football nowadays, especially in Spanish football, the benefit seems to be with the doubt rather than with the advantage. So, it seems a shame that it's that way around, really, when we should be, marginal gains are maybe the reason for this, but, there's nothing in that for me that would suggest that it shouldn't have been a goal, or at least not enough doubt even that it shouldn't have been a goal as well. But yeah, not to excuse the performance of Real Murcia, who really do need to kickstart their season if they have any aspirations of being towards the top of the league come June next year. A side that are currently unbeaten, Liam, if we start to turn towards the rest of the fixtures this weekend, Talavera, who are surviving and thriving in Grupo Uno. They beat Lugo this weekend, who basically taken one step forward with the win over Racing Club de Ferrol last weekend, and then another back away to Talavera this weekend, haven't they?
Yeah, I actually think I may have got this wrong. I think they did lose their first game, didn't they, away at Racing Club de Ferrol. I think probably the reason why I didn't have that down as a defeat was because they played really well in the game, but I'm fairly sure they actually lost it. So I think they're unbeaten in 4 actually. But yeah, very encouraging from them. And yeah, Lugo, as you say, I really thought that last weekend would be a springboard. They did play brilliantly against Racing Club de Ferrol, but they did record the win. And this wasn't a great performance at all from them. I think it's really disappointing to go to someone like Talavera, newly promoted, and create so little. I just thought they were really quite poor overall. So yeah, disappointing. Baracaldo 1, Cacereño 1. Baracaldo have had a decent run since the first day of the season. I think they lost their first game, and since then I think they're unbeaten. But they've drawn 3 of them, and there's a lot of draws out there, isn't there? And I suppose that is one of the reasons why, with the exception of Tenerife and Grupo Orlen, there's a lot of teams closely bunched together at the moment. I was interested by this one as another former Real Zaragoza striker, a much derided one at that, in his time with the club, Sabin Merino, who actually started off at Athletic Club. He's 33 now. He's been around a bit in terms of his travels to play football. I think he's played in Mexico and Costa Rica in the last 2 or 3 years. He's back now where he comes from, which is obviously the Basque Country, and yeah, he scored for Baracaldo in this game. So yeah, I wish him well, although he was an absolute flop for Real Zaragoza. Hopefully he's now found his level at the grand old age of 33. And of course, Cacereño as well have done all right, haven't they, since the first day of the season? I think they've only lost one of their first. Actually, no, they didn't lose the first game of the season. I think they lost at home, didn't they? When it wasn't really at home against Alentejo, but they've only lost one of their first 5. But again, they've only won one, so there's a lot. It's going to stay quite even behind Tenerife at this rate, isn't it? Because there are an awful lot of draws out there, and it just reaffirms, doesn't it, what we've said all along, which is that this league is incredibly tight, and there's very little between looking nervously over the shoulder at the relegation places and looking optimistically towards the playoff places. How about Celta Fortuna Alentejo and another Galician derby?
Yeah, and it's Celta Fortuna, who, to be fair, at the start of the season, I thought would maybe struggle with the ascension of some of the players into the first team, and a lot of them moving on to pastures new as well. But it's 3 wins in a row for the home side now against this Arenteiro side. Arenteiro did hit back with a goal from that man Mingo, who is just taken to this league like a duck to water. But yeah, Celta Fortuna doing quite well, just sat in that table behind Tenerife. The best of the rest, I suppose we best describe them, Liam.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, a decent win here, as you say. And yeah, I mean, as I said before, I think they're usually in and around the playoffs, but they certainly weren't that close to them last year. So yeah, this is an encouraging start, and very much the best of the rest, as everyone tries to make up the already sizable gap between themselves and the league leaders. Juventud Torremolinos 1, Antequera 1. That's still no wins for Antequera, is it, so far? And as far as I know, still no wages being paid to the home side's players. So yeah, 3 games unbeaten despite that, and fair play to them again for showing up and giving a really decent display against Antequera and getting a point. So yeah, let's hope that situation changes quickly, because it really shouldn't be continuing this long, should it? How about our friends from Getxo, Nick?
It is, and it's back to winning ways for Reinas de Getxo against Unionistas. They went 1-0 up before being reduced to 10 men, conceding that equaliser early in the second half. But it's that man, Baba, once again with an electric pace, brought down the box. The ref didn't give it. FES did give it, as the ADG appealed it. ADG feels like a great nickname for them as well. And the ref then changed his mind. Penalty converted, and another 3 points at home to the team from the suburbs of Bilbao, who are, again, Liam, performing against expectations. And it is very, good to see. And Hidalgo as well, who scored on the goals. I thought he had a very good game too. He made my team of the week, and it's just refreshing to see these newly promoted sides, all of them seemingly doing so well.
Yeah, there's very few exceptions to that rule, is there? Overall, they're all getting a few wins under their belt. Yeah, Baba here, unbelievable pace, as you say, and nice to see. I think we've seen a lot of ridiculous FES appeals, and also some which I thought were penalties that the referee seemed very reluctant to overturn a divisional decision. This is clearly a penalty, and fair play to the ref for looking at the monitor and going, yeah, actually that's a penalty. And there's another one of those later on in this roundup. So I like to see that. I like to see a referee going, you know what, actually, yeah, I think I'm going to change my mind now, especially when it's such a clear-cut a wrong decision initially. Real Madrid Castilla 1, Tenerife 3. I said that this would be the first time that Tenerife would really be tested. Their response to that was to cruise into a 3-0 lead. I found the first goal quite amusing. It's just a massive route one, isn't it? We talk about nice football in Spain. Massive hoof from the keeper. Misjudgment by the Real Madrid Castilla defender. In goes De Miguel, tucks it away, scores another one later on. 6-5 for De Miguel. 15 points out of 15 for Tenerife, and they're already 5 points clear. We've said it many times before, but right now it's an absolute steamroller, isn't it? And nobody seems anywhere near capable of contending with them.
No, this is what happens when your 45 million euro player plays in the first team at the weekend. Is it leaves you massively exposed, Liam, to some of these top sides in Primera RFEF. But yeah, I think for this one, Tenerife made it child's play at time. They were quaint when they needed to be. They were lethal when they needed to be. But you know, again, we keep going back to this point. It's looking ordinary for them. You know, there's nothing here that, you know, when we speak about Baba, or we look at some of the other teams like Sabadell, where we're saying, oh, they're playing exciting football. This isn't exciting football from Tenerife. It's just attritional, get the job done, get in and out, and then go home with 3 points. And you know, it was sort of like joked about on Twitter with Josh Harrison, I think his name is, who is part of the I think you know him from the Spanish Segunda group. He said, we might be promoted by March if we carry on with this. And I can kind of see it happening at this rate, because again, there's just no challenges to them at the minute.
No, I think it's Joel, not Josh. I know it's a J. I mean, it's definitely definitely a Tenerife fan who has already suggested that they are going to pee the league. I'm sure slightly tongue in cheek. And to be fair to Tenerife fans, they had a miserable time of it last season. So they deserve to have a little bit of joy this season, I think. Yeah, it's clinical. It's effective. It's you know, basically all about getting the ball to De Miguel, isn't it, really? And he'll do the rest. And then obviously see what their chance conversion rate is. It must be very, very high. And then there's something also that they've only conceded 1 goal in 5 games. So they're not bad at the back either. It is a situation where you could, as Charles suggested, really possibly imagine this team being promoted way, way before the end of the season. But yeah, there's still another 33 games to go, so let's hope it does stay a bit more competitive than that. You know, with only one team going, we don't really want one team to run away with it, do you? Unless you're a Tenerife fan.
No, definitely not. A bit more competitive down in Grupo Dos, and a team that is now joint top of Grupo Dos is Sabadell. We've talked about them being very easy on the eye so far this season, Liam, and this was the epitome of a hard-fought win, as you say, by the minimum. 2 wins, 3 draws, and they've played 2 of the relegated sides from the Spanish Segunda as well. This is a brilliant start from Ferran Costa's team, beating Villarreal Bay by 1-0 this weekend.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they do play some really nice football. I think Ferran Costa is a really interesting individual in that he was very successful. I think it was with Lleida in Segunda Federación, and then got this job with Andorra. It didn't really work out for him there, but I think obviously he was identified as somebody who could take things forward because of the style of football he played. You know, very much a focus on possession-based football and moving the ball through the thirds rather than route one. And there's a lot to see about that style of play when you watch Sabadell, but sometimes you need to grind out a 1-0, don't you? And a tremendous start. And I think we fancied them to do well at the start of the season, and at the moment it's all going to plan, and they must be delighted with their start. And even the 0-0 against Cartagena, I thought they probably deserved to win that game that was finished off, wasn't it? I thought they probably were a bit unlucky not to get the 3 points in that, so they could be even better off. So very, very encouraging. Also very encouraging, not a million miles away, probably about an hour down the coast, perhaps a little bit more. What went on in Tarragona last weekend, which was somewhat unexpected, wasn't it? Very encouraging for their fans anyway.
Yeah, we did not see this coming after the chat we had last week. I don't know, maybe we are maybe if Luis Cesar San Pedro put our chat on screen in midweek and said, look what these lads from England are saying about us. and inspired them to a massive 3-0 win against Eldense. Nothing much really happened, did it, Liam, for the part? Then Balselga, with a stunning strike, broke the deadlock. This is Techers, isn't it, as the kids used to say?
Yeah, tremendous. I think he was very good, wasn't he, at Alentejo last year? He's one that's got a good record in Primera RFEF overall, and this is a smashing hit. And to be honest, Juan de Fuente is much closer in, but a decent effort from him as well to make it 2-0. Left foot strike, the keeper just flew past him, didn't it? Not very far away from him at all, but he did have a chance. And then and again, another FES challenge, I think, here. And again, a good decision to challenge and a good decision from the referee to overturn his first decision, which was no penalty. He did give the penalty to Nastic after the appeal. Javi tucks it away. 3 goals in a little more than 10 minutes after nothing happened for an hour. 3-0, game over. A very encouraging performance overall from Nastic against Eldense, who I think were unbeaten going to this, weren't they? So, I'm not saying this one swallow does not make a summer and all that, but ultimately that's a great start to the recovery. Let's see if they can build on that next week.
Absolutely. And then up to Asturias afterwards, Liam. Real Aviles Industrial 3, Bilbao Athletic 2. Really starting to see like some Danny Vidal hallmarks from this team, who seem to be grinding out results at the moment. They were behind and then ahead and then got pegged back, but they did eventually win it in the 90th minute, didn't they, Liam? But there was some controversy around that blasted FES.
Yeah, I promised the last time I mentioned FES tonight. Everybody's fed up with hearing me talk about it already. I mean, we know that every goal is checked, and this is a goal that's checked for offside. And I can see why there might be some doubt, because it's interesting when he first looks to try and hit the ball, he's not offside, and then he sort of runs around the back of the defender. By the time the ball comes back into the box, he is back onside, regardless of whether you think he should be offside, given flagged offside or not. The referee looks at his monitor, as they always do, as I say, to check whether the goal is valid, and gives the goal, decides that it's not offside. And then Bilbao Athletic chuck their card in the ring and go, "Can you have a look at it, please? Because we think he's offside." I mean, what on earth do they think is going to happen in that situation? And when you said about ironing out some of what FES does, that's surely got to be one of the things. The guy's checked it. He's decided it's not offside. What on earth is going on when they can just go, "Can you have a look at it, please?" Unsurprisingly, he had another look at it. He still gave the goal. Utterly ridiculous.
No, it's madness, isn't it? It's like I say, these are the things that need to be ironed out eventually, or reviewed at least, because it's getting to... It becomes silly, doesn't it? It becomes time wasted at that way, or at least chances maybe. But very, very daft from that perspective. But great to see, Real Aviles Industrial doing well. We thought they would struggle, especially given the time that Danny Vidal had with the squad. I think he was only appointed 2 weeks before the season started. But he seems to got them up and running, and they're picking up, pretty decent results. And, Bilbao Athletic, a cantera that, I spoke with Christopher Evans last week, which are known for producing quality players and doing well. So it's a great win for them, this. A cantera that's probably not doing so well at the minute, Liam, is Sevilla Atletico. They lost 1-0 to Tarazona, who I'm starting to feel for Tarazona, not because of the results, because of the travelling they've got to do. Some of it's fucking ridiculous, really, isn't it?
It's insane,
but it wasn't.
It's absolutely insane. I mean, how can they be in Grupo Dos? I just don't understand how you've made that geographical division. They're in Aragon, for God's sake. It just doesn't make no sense at all. And it's such a small club. I'm not saying they should treat them nicely because they haven't got much money and they come from a small town, but it's absolutely nonsensical. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And going down to Seville this weekend, where it was absolutely blowing a gale. So we know it wasn't going to be a classic at the Estadio Jesus Navas. And it was a scrappy win in the end, but courtesy of an own goal, which can often be the difference between, survival and relegation in the season. We've already spoken about how, Tarazona were going to struggle to replace, Fuentes, who went to Cordoba, and Fuoli, who went to Sabadell. With players of the same quality, but now you see some players getting, good minutes for them and seemingly putting in shifts and, getting results where they need to, Liam.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to give a lot of credit to this to Juan Barrera, haven't you, the coach? I mean, also don't forget the Cedeño, who was there last season. I think he's from one of the Latin American countries. I think he's in, is it Panama or something like that? But he's playing for Las Palmas, wouldn't there? So, Fuentes and Fuoli are the headline makers for them last season, but Cedeño is another big loss for them. And tremendous from Juan Barrera to get a group of players together again and They are for me. They are the sort of the dogs of war, the Wimbledon of the 90s in 2025-26 Primera RFEF, as they were last season. They're not necessarily particularly easy on the eye, but stylish football costs money, doesn't it? What you can do a lot with is a group of players who run hard for each other and work hard for each other, and they are tremendous at that. And as you say, they did that at the end of a very, very long journey down to Andalusia. I'm fairly sure they didn't take a private jet to get there either. So tremendous, delighted for the town, delighted for Juan Moreno, and yeah, I really feared from going to the season, given the really poor hand they were dealt for me by being put in that grupo, but they seem to be making a really decent fist of it. So you can imagine this is one of my favourite results of the entire weekend. Another team that, for me, hasn't got a huge amount of cash to spend, Teruel, are also doing all right, aren't they?
Yeah, like I say, they just one defeat in the last 5. Bring in Europa, who we've already spoken, several times in the podcast, that play with sort of like a gung ho, let's see if we can score just as many as we concede type style. But Teruel, really handled them in this one, and there was very little attacking threat, but. When you see the goal that Teruel scored, which was incidentally too quick for the camera to keep up with at this ground, it's not a smash and grab, but it's a get your opportunity and then back yourself to the hilt to defend against it. So Paris will be very happy with this result. I think it's their first win of the season as well, Liam, if I'm not mistaken. So first time to get 3 points, and they'll be very happy with that, won't they?
Yeah, exactly. I think with what they're working with there, and you're not going to expect to say fast-flowing, hugely entertaining football. They're going to need to grind out a few wins and grind out a few 0-0s on the road, etc., etc. So very encouraging for them that they managed to completely stifle any sort of attacking threat that Europa have posed other teams. So yeah, I think it's very much a result that gives them a lot of hope. It is their first win, but they had drawn 3 before that, so they're competitive. And as we've said so many times, we really want to see sides that come up for Segunda Federación be competitive, because we don't want some sort of yo-yo situation whereby all the teams that come up, and of course there's an awful lot of them, there's 10 in total, isn't there, end up going straight back down again. A couple of games we can gloss over fairly quickly, I think. Nick, Osasuna Promesas 0, Ponferradina 0. Ponfe supposed to be pleased that they stopped the rot. I think they've lost the previous 3, hadn't they? But not a great game, and not a game that they would expect to be drawing if they want to be competitive at the top end. It's a game they would want to be winning. But in the context of what's happened recently for them, I suppose they'll take that away from home. And Hércules Alcorcón was a big disappointment for me. 0-0 this one. I thought both sides would do a lot more in this game. They didn't really. They kind of cancelled each other out. Fairly disappointing fare overall, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that. And I don't know what it is. I'm expecting every single time that I watch Hercules at the moment for them to do something, but they have been, again, they seem to be getting more and more, for want of a better word, Liam, boring every weekend that they play. And they just keep posting these kind of like beige results. And, eventually something's going to have to give, because expectation is high in Alicante this season. They have backed the manager with some decent signings as well, and the fans are piling into the Jose Rico Perez. So eventually they're going to have to treat them to a pretty spectacular game. But I completely agree with you. This was not the one. And even from an Alcorcón perspective, who have performed, valiantly so far this season, I think they were quite flat. But I don't know if that's because Hercules made them flat. So it was a tough one. All I can say is I bet that Alex O'Brien, for Alcorcón Irlanda, is glad he didn't pay the €243 to fly from Cork to Alicante to watch this one, because I think he would have been quite disappointed.
Yeah, I did think of him when this game stuttered to a close. He played Vladis, didn't he, as well? He dropped Mariano Carmona, which was interesting, I suppose. You have to give him a chance, but I think Mariano Carmona has been doing a really good job as Vladis' replacement. I know it's also Vladis has gone back to being dark haired. I'm not sure if that was a blonde bleach job last year, or whether he's just got his Jester men out this year, but he's didn't recognize him at first, and then he proceeded to be rather anonymous after that. So yeah, not sure about that decision, but I suppose you've kept him, you haven't taken the money that was on offer, you've got to play him, really, haven't you? You might well lose him in January for a bit of money if somebody offers a little bit of money with him being out of contract next summer. I suppose they might take a nominal fee and let him go in January, but if that is the case, they probably want to get some value out out of him between now and then, but he was one of many in yellow who didn't sparkle at the weekend. Last game, Atletico Madrid 2, Ibiza. Now, there's another side that we fancy to do well in Grupo Dos. Another reason why Sabadell and Atletico Sanluqueno are able to be right at the top there. This is another team that's stuttering, that we'd expect to be in their place, if we're honest. Dreadful mistake from Ramon Juan to give Atleti be the first goal caught in possession, and then they scored another one fairly soon after that. They were 2-0 up, Atleti B within 20 minutes. I did love the effort from Del Pozo, which rattled the top of the bar. Just absolute screamer of a volley, would have been one of the goals of the season already, never mind what goes on in the next 31 weeks, if that had gone in. And of course, Bebe had a go from a long way out, which always happens, and it was well saved. But yeah, again, a bit of a flat performance from a team that we fancy to do well. So, there's a lot to sort out in a few of the bigger budget and bigger expectation teams, isn't there, in Grupo Dos?
No, absolutely. And I suppose from Atleti Bay perspective, this is kind of a result that they've been expecting for a while as well. It's a bit of a scalp for them. Belotti, who had a sensational game for this and ended up on the score sheet, if I remember rightly, obviously was promoted with Ceuta last season. So, they've got quality of players to be in there to get these kind of results, and they need to maybe start posting them a bit more regularly as well. But for Ibiza, they kind of had this problem last year. It became a bit, sensational, then stop, sensational, then stop. And I think we're at a point now where they've gone sensational and then they're going to stop for a little bit. So we know Paco Gemé's team will bounce back, but, they need to start, recovering sooner rather than later, because otherwise, very similar to Real Murcia, they will find themselves having to play catch up a fair bit. So, interesting to see how they bounce back next weekend. Shall we look at which games to watch next weekend, Liam? Do you want to give us some Grupo Uno games to round us off with?
Yeah, I like to try and vary things. So I haven't picked Guadalajara this week, although I'll always certainly watch it. I've gone with Unionistas against Delta Fortuna. I think that, as you know, I'm not a massive fan of watching Filiales, but Unionistas won the last game at home, lost at Nastic the following week. This is a tough test, of course, but I think they'll be up for this one. Having won the last home game, I think the fans will really get behind them, and it'll be interesting to see what Celta Fortuna bring to Salamanca in this one, and whether they can brush aside the home side, as they have done on a couple of occasions on their travels, especially Merida. They beat very comfortably, didn't they, 2 or 3 weeks ago? Tenerife, that's 6:30, by the way, Spanish time on Saturday night. Tenerife, Zamora. I think it's first against fifth, this, isn't it? Zamora, we've liked so far. Perhaps sort of liked, but not perhaps liked as much as we thought we were going to. But they are unbeaten. They are in the top 5. Let's see what they can do away at Tenerife. There are not so many sides in that Grupo who can really aspire to cause Tenerife problems. This is one of them. Let's hope they do rise to that challenge. And then on the Sunday, I'm kind of caught here a bit between Merida against Arenas de Getxo, which I'd quite like to watch, but probably going to keep most of my attention from midday onwards Spanish time on Pontevedra against Talavera, 2 promoted sides who started the season really well. How about you in Grupo Dos?
Yes, I've just realised I've omitted the times here, so I'll make sure to post them out on social media shortly afterwards, so that people are signposted as to when they're going to be kicking off. The first one I'm going to pick is the Estadio Santo Domingo in Madrid, or in Alcorcón, just outside of Madrid, I should say. Alcorcón against Atletico Sanluqueno. Let's see if the away side can, maintain their unbeaten run, stay top of the league against an Alcorcón side which has shown it to be quite decent so far this season. I need to see whether Paco Gemé's at Ibiza bounces back. Nastic are the visitors to Cambises this weekend. After that, really good 3-0 win last weekend. It'd be interesting to see how both these teams act. And then also for my third game, I'm a bit similar to you. I don't know who to watch out this one. I feel like watching Sabadell away at El Mauli against Antequera is good potential, but I also think Europa versus Marbella is going to be a great game as well. So I'm kind of 50-50 with those ones. I don't think they're kicking off at the same time, though, unlike yours. So maybe I'm cheating a little bit there and going for 4 games to watch rather than 3. But yeah, plenty of football to watch across the weekend, starting on Friday night. So we'll make sure to let you know which games are kicking off there. On the Spanish Segunda show this weekend, Liam, have you got any exciting news, any good fixtures, anything like that to look forward to?
Yeah, there's a couple of big games going on this weekend. I mean, it is as incredibly unpredictable as ever. And we run a prediction competition. And I'm ashamed to say that last week, of the entire set of fixtures, I got one result right. Not even the score, just the win, who won, or win, draw, lose, won. And it was unfortunately, Nick, Burgos to beat Malaga. So I wasn't even very happy about that one. I was very happy that the one I got right was one I didn't really want to get right. So yeah, but it's a tremendous league as always to watch, and this weekend will be no different.
Yes, absolutely. And over in El Partido this week, there is going to be a slight El Porto related subject, because we are going to be speaking to Luke Chambers, the man who is behind Costa del Football. We're going to be focusing on, what Costa del Football stands for. We're going to be looking at ex-players who come from the Costa del Sol who have made it to the big time. We'll also be going to focus on the teams that make up Costa del Football as well, of which, from a Primera RFEF perspective, Marbella is one of them. So it's going to be really interesting to talk about them in a little bit of depth too over there. And also, just to quickly plug, we have got Revista El Partido, which is a new magazine which we've been sharing, which launched today. From an El Podo perspective, we've got an article in there about Ibiza and their beautiful shirt collection this year, the 3 shirts, which I think are 3 of the best in this league. Also, memories from last season, Liam, an article dedicated to Yecla and our visit to watch Yeclano Deportivo last season, which I really enjoyed writing about as well. So definitely worth checking that out in there. But for now, we've come to the end of the episode. I'll say thank you to you, Liam, for joining me once again to talk about all things Primera Federación.
I'm off to read that article right now, Nick.
Absolutely perfect. I cannot wait for the feedback as well, and you'll be pleased to know that the picture of you and Gabri made it front and center of one of those pages. So do enjoy that one as well. And to you guys at home, thank you so much for listening again. Gracias. We'll see you next weekend. Hasta luego.